incredibly busy. Their core focus is around chasing users and attribution models. However, there's a number of other things that you do need to consider, particularly when it comes to digital advertising. And one of those is ad verification. Ad verification has become broadly and widely adopted amongst the majority of marketers today. And that's because it's the digital insurance that you simply can't live without. Ad verification, for those of you who aren't familiar, is independent third-party measurement that enables you to have full transparency into the quality of the impressions that you're buying so that you can ensure that you're optimizing towards the media partners and the inventory that's going to deliver the greatest quality impressions for the lowest possible price and deliver ultimately the greatest business outcomes. As the digital ecosystem is incredibly complex, it continues to evolve, so too is ad verification, to ensure that we can keep up to date with marketers' requirements and demands to deliver greater outcomes. Before we go into our panel discussion today, I'm going to take you on a short journey where we're going to look back at how ad measurement has changed over the years and some of the latest and new emerging trends that we're beginning to see. So firstly, if you can cast your minds back to 2009. This was when the App Store first launched. Some of you, in case you're interested, might remember the very first app was Texas Hold'em. I think it's still available today. In 2009, this was also the very first time when brand safety emerged. And back then, it was quite basic, still tools that are being used today. It was in the form of inclusion, exclusion, and keywords. However, as tech has evolved and marketers have had additional requirements, we've now seen more sophisticated technology multiplied as well. This includes blocking. Blocking is predominantly used to block your ads from serving alongside any content that could be considered harmful to your brand or could offend your target audience. For an example, we might have a children's brand that wants to avoid serving their ads alongside any adult or alcohol content. However, as time moved on, marketers started to want more. They didn't just want standard brand safety where you can avoid serving your ads alongside content that most brands would consider harmful, like adults or alcohol or violence. And they started to want full customization in the form of brand suitability. Brand suitability is really about targeting your measurement strategy and only avoiding the content that is harmful to your brand, because every brand is unique and they all have unique requirements and unique values that you need to serve. Along with brand suitability, we've now seen new tech emerge in the form of sophisticated contextual solutions that have sentiment and emotion analysis built in. This is really important because sentiment and emotion analysis has the ability to detect whether the content on a page is positive or negative. You can also detect if it evokes feelings of happiness or sadness or fear or excitement. So it gives the brands and the marketers full control over exactly which environments they want their ads to be served in and they want their brand image to be seen. An example of this might be an auto brand. They might want to target serving their ads alongside content that's promoting new cars or road trip destinations. But I guarantee you they don't want to serve their ads alongside content that's talking about a car crash or content that's talking about a product recall from their brand. So this is where we can really give you back the power to customize and decide exactly what situations you want your brand to be seen in. If we now fast forward to 2011, this was the revolution of news. The Daily was the very first news outlet to move their news onto an app so that you could now carry it in your back pocket via a mobile phone or a tablet. In 2011, this was also when we started to detect new types of ad fraud. Back then, it was quite basic. It came in the form of ad stacking. This was the most popular type of fraud where multiple ads are stacked on top of one another so that fraudsters can steal media budgets. However, as tech and as the ecosystem evolved, they too got smarter and they started to develop more sophisticated fraud models. And so as we've started to see particularly new emerging mediums like CTV, digital out of home, as they become available, they typically have higher CPMs, and so fraudsters continue to adapt their models in order to target these mediums. And so as we see an increase in CPMs, naturally that tends to follow. It's not all bad though. The industry is really working hard and taking steps to address it. Advertisers are starting to adopt more fraud mitigation strategies. They're implementing the required tech to combat this and to avoid serving their ads. We've also seen tech advance in the form of blockchain, machine learning, and AI in order to develop more sophisticated solutions to combat this and overcome it. If we now move forward to 2014, hashtag love. It's probably the most overutilized hashtag ever. In 2014, a fun fact for you, this is also when the word hashtag was added to the Oxford English Dictionary. In 2014, this is also when viewability came about. The MRC set the industry standard for viewability, which says that an ad must be 50% in view for at least 1 second for display or 2 seconds for video in order to be considered as viewable. However, as time marches on, marketers also began to identify that they wanted more than just to see if their ads were present on the page. They wanted to target the right environments, and then they wanted attention. We've moved beyond simple engagement metrics, and now marketers are demanding attention. Attention can come in many different forms. You want to be able to understand the visibility of the ad, not just the viewability, but also how long it was on the screen. You can now also look at things like the situation, the contextual environment that the ad was served in. You can also look at how many other ads were present on the screen, as well as user engagement and interaction. Did they scroll the ad? Did they click on it? Did they turn the volume up or down? These are all now new metrics that you can understand by using attention measurement. And with the launch of attention, we've also seen new eye tracking models become available as well. To be completely transparent, it is still predominantly led by markets such as the US. Even in Australia, here in APAC, we are seeing these eye tracking solutions become available. And what it does is it has the ability to track a user's eye focus so that you can see exactly where they're looking on the screen and where they're focusing their attention. Scary, but also very exciting. If we now move forward to 2016, this is when influencer marketing really started to take off. Influencers have a responsibility to deliver an ROI. And speaking of ROI and efficiencies, 2016 is also when supply path optimization emerged. Supply path optimization enables marketers to have full transparency into their programmatic media campaigns so that you can see exactly where every single dollar that you're investing is going. And so with supply path optimization, you can understand and optimize towards the highest quality impressions that are being delivered by the media partners that will give them to you at the lowest possible cost. We've also seen now more demand for sustainability as well. We had a panel about it earlier, which was really interesting, and certainly it's a very relevant and important topic today. And now you actually have the ability to measure the carbon output of your campaigns so that you can optimize towards delivering the best possible campaign with the best outcomes by leaving behind the lowest carbon footprint as well. So throughout all of the years, the hashtags, the launch of influencer marketing, tech has evolved, the industry evolved, and so too has ad verification. So I've touched on, and I know it's been quite lightly, but 4 key topics here and 4 key emerging trends. And the first one is attention. Marketers are looking beyond viewability for attention, and they're also looking at testing new eye tracking solutions. We're also seeing marketers move beyond brand safety and looking to achieve brand suitability with the use of more sophisticated contextual solutions that have sentiment and emotion built in. We also have the emergence of supply path optimization to drive greater efficiencies. And lastly, sustainability. Marketers want to ensure that they're delivering their campaigns in the most sustainable ways possible by delivering it with the lowest possible carbon footprint. I'd now like to talk about a couple of these topics in a little bit more detail, and specifically through the lens of the local market here in Vietnam. So I'd like to introduce and welcome to the stage our 2 panelists for today, where we'll be taking this conversation to the next level. We have Nitin from Group M, as well as James from Unilever. Please join me on the stage. Great. Thank you both for joining me. I know that I've just touched on and introduced a lot of different topics about how measurement is evolving and changing. I'd like to dive into a couple of these in a bit more detail, specifically looking at them from a local lens as to how we're tracking here in the Vietnam market. Before we do that, I'd actually like to start with a couple of questions about the current state of media quality here in Vietnam. So Nitin, I'll start with you first. Where are Vietnam advertisers at on their media quality journeys? And do you think that they're keeping up to date with global marketers when it comes to safeguarding their digital spends?
Vietnam is the fastest growing digital economy in the South. And that kind of brings a lot of digital money in the marketplace. And that also gives a lot of attention from our own advertisers
Sorry, I might just pause you there if that's okay. I don't know if the microphone's on. Is that right?
Testing. Can?
Okay. Can everyone hear?
Yeah, that also makes a lot of our advertisers very, very concerned about making sure that they are operating in a brand safe environment. A recent research I gave you guys, I think this is an app, right? And I was reading about it. That says almost 92% of advertisers today in Vietnam are worried about their brand being placed in the right kind of environment, in the right kind of channel. So I believe the awareness is not a concern at all. Across all advertisers, there is a huge amount of awareness that they need to be present in brand safe space. However, very interestingly, from the same research I saw, that almost one-third of these advertisers believe that not a single of their ads has ever been placed in an unsafe brand space. So that makes me wonder that how do they know that? Because are they all tracking it? If I go back and try to check how many of our advertisers are today using some form of third-party safety filters, I'll say only 50% of our advertisers today are using some form of third-party safety filters. Because of the recent government decrees, we did see that recently there has been a heightened interest in brand safety, and a lot of our advertisers has pushed us to implement all platform-based brand safety filters. And so I'll say today our advertisers are aware. They're applying the filters which comes without really having a cost impact. However, when it comes to cost impact, 50% of the advertisers are paying to make sure that there is some form of brand safety given to their ads.
Great, thank you. It's certainly a hot topic here, and it's great to see that everyone's really stepping up the measures that are available as well. So James, I'd like to come to you next. What are some of the key challenges, specifically for Vietnam advertisers, that you think that we need to overcome in order for us to see more adoption of verification measurement?
So actually, probably first of all, I mean, these are relevant to Vietnam, but actually this is definitely a worldwide topic, to be honest, but it is particularly an issue, of course, for us like everywhere else in Vietnam. So I think probably you can group, there's many barriers, but you could probably group them into three. I think the first one, and we were talking about it just now outside, is actually a lack of understanding. Now, we might come back to that topic a little bit later on, but the interesting thing, particularly, we've got a lot of senior people in the room here today. I think we probably, as senior leaders, need to face up to not entirely understanding this topic. And it's actually quite an important barrier because of decision-making within all organisations, and I include my very own within that. I think probably the second one is around measures and measurement, and the numbers of measures, and the complexity of measures, lack of standardised measures, which makes it very difficult to know what you're looking at. All of us that have worked in business know that having consistency in your numbers when you're trying to compare one thing against another is extremely important for decision making. And the whole confidence of that decision making process is based on understanding that you've got consistency in your tracking metrics. So I think that's particularly important. And then the other one is with regard to the tools and the actual access to data itself, or at least, even if you've got access to data, the ability to then extract information out to then use it. Which I'm jumping a little bit ahead on your question, but then you kind of go, well, so what? Well, I think there's definitely an education job that we need to do on ourselves at all levels of our organisations. And then probably the next thing that we need to look at as an industry, and this is very relevant for us here in Vietnam, is how do we generate and create industry standards? Because it's actually in everybody's interest. This isn't just about me as a manufacturer, as a brand owner wanting to do it. Actually, as a publisher, etc. This is not only going to become the norm, but it's actually a commercial imperative.
Great, thank you. I think you're spot on there. Certainly education is key, and that's exactly why we're here today. But as well, industry standards are so important to make sure that everyone's aligned. So I'd now like to move on specifically to the topic of brand safety and brand suitability. I know it's a really hot topic that everyone wants to hear about today. So Nitin, at GroupM, how do you ensure that brands don't appear next to or support content that could be harmful or seen as negative by their target audience?
So, at GroupM, we are really focused on making sure that our brands are getting kind of a responsible environment to advertising. And I'll say one of the first things that we do for this purpose is supply path optimization that you also spoke about. We take that very seriously. So in Vietnam, in fact, in 2023, GroupM has already implemented supply path optimization. We can confidently say that all our programmatic supply ecosystem today is brand safe, at least from a content platform perspective. We have checked across platforms, and we only include those platforms which are safe for advertisers into our supply. So that's first step. The second step that we do is we know the walled garden spaces where this route is not possible. We make sure that we go to each of those platforms, we understand their safety parameters, we implement those parameters across campaigns that we run for our clients. In case of YouTube, if there is a blacklist filter, we'll make sure that we apply that filter when we are running a campaign for our client. Or in case of Facebook, if there is a filter which allows us to take care of a controversial content topic, we'll make sure that we apply that across all our client campaigns. So that's the second layer of thing that we do. Beyond that, we also go on and on our own investment, we create inclusion and exclusion lists. So we make sure that when we run our client campaigns, we are not going too broad and going everywhere on the platform, purely basis platform filters. We also make sure that we only include the channels or the right channels, which we have already tested manually, and we are sure that there is right kind of content over there. So that's the third kind of thing we apply. After that, we encourage our clients, right? So we go to each of our clients, we teach, we educate them along with you, along with DV, along with Mode, all the safety partners, and we try and educate clients to make sure they apply some form of third-party filters. So these are the kind of things we do. However, what recently we have realized is that this is not enough, because this is still pieces of consumers. 64% of the consumers believe that you need to serve me ad in a suitable environment. And you can't just serve me an ad anywhere, anytime, any place, whenever you feel like. They find it intrusions. And millennials are really gung-ho about it, that they will not support a brand which is appearing in an environment which they don't think is a suitable environment. And I think for cases like that, there is obviously a cost imperative because clients need to apply a contextual targeting filter, and those filters are available. Again, like with IAS, we are applying those filters on some of the campaigns. So those filters are available. It is really about brands taking a call that will apply that and will be in the right environment and taking a cost for that. So that, yeah, that's the kind of things we are doing. At least one part of this is making sure doing the hygiene, and second part of it is making sure we do the education.
Great, thank you. And James, how does Unilever balance brand safety with the desire to reach a broad audience and achieve high engagement?
So that is so it's a big topic, and brand safety. I think the first thing is definition of brand safety, because we always get into a thing where we're talking about brand safety in particular locations on a particular site, right? But actually, this is a much bigger topic, which all of us, particularly those of us that work in organisations with big brands or with multinational brands, you've got a whole load of risks, reputational risks, etc., that are associated with it. So it is a big topic. I think I will give an answer, first of all. I mean, my media, in-house media colleagues are here, and they will certainly say that Griff doesn't actually have an expert knowledge on all of the technical aspects to do with ad placement, and I don't. And that's why actually the answer I want to give is a little bit broader. So if you take a step back and you look at a traditional view on this, the traditional view is that I'm a marketeer as a background. So we want to take our ads and we want to throw them out there in as reckless a fashion as possible to drive as much reach as we can. And then within our organization, it might be our PR teams or it might be our legal teams that are constantly then pulling us back on this, as though there's a complete trade-off in the organization. Now, actually, if you take a step back and you look at those two things of brand safety and you look at trying to get reach, you're trying to drive as much scale as you can, they're not contradictory at all. They actually go very much together, because if you think about the way we should, and all of us will have been in situations where we haven't done this, but we should be planning strategically from the beginning. So if you're setting up you've got clear jobs to be done for your brand at the beginning, you've got very clear campaign objectives that you're setting up. And then within that, it becomes much easier to work out where the relevant places are for your communication to be put. And that's particularly important because you'll find then that safety becomes a natural add-on to that part. So I think probably the biggest thing of it is actually we need to do our jobs properly in planning our communication in the first place. Now, there's no such thing as a risk-free environment. So there's always plan B and plan C, and there's some things you can't even fully plan for. So that's the nature of the beast, but that would be my answer anyway.
Great, thank you. I'd now like to move on to another topic which is really trending globally, and it's become one of the most talked about topics in digital advertising, and that's attention. But attention is really complex. It's often not fully agreed upon or even understood. It's not something that we're seeing widely adopted across all markets globally. So I'd like to talk about attention here in Vietnam and the state here. So Nitin, from what you've seen, are marketers in Vietnam implementing attention-based strategies in order to drive greater outcomes?
So first of all, attention is important. Attention creates intent, and intent makes magic happen. Right? So we all will want attention at all point in time, at all point in life, wherever we are. Right? We'll want attention. So it is no different with the brands or the attention that we are talking about for the brands. When we talk about attention, one of the things that we need to understand that attention today is not well defined. It is not at all well defined. Nobody knows. Everyone has his own definition of attention. Everyone has his own definition of attention. Attention is not a well defined parameter as on today. We know that in Australia and in some Western market, there is some form of a small work happening around attention. And what essentially they are calling as attention is eye tracking. So what they do is they do eye tracking, and then they count that as some form of, okay, my ad got some form of attention. But I'll say attention is much deeper than that. Attention can have multiple layers. Today, and I think if we all go into creating attention metrics or talk about attention metrics, I'll say today most of those stuffs are tracked by you guys, right? Like if you look at VTR or a CTR or a viewability, or we look at a sound on or sound off, or if we look at context, which context the ad was placed in, if we just take all those parameters, and if we are able to figure out a holy grail of formula between them, which is not simple, as I understand, which is not simple, but if we are able to do that and put together attention metrics, which is acceptable to the industry, then attention can create magic, because then we can optimize to attention, then we can trade to attention, and I believe within the abundant digital supply ecosystem, that will be the right thing to do, right? Because honestly, within digital ecosystem, supply is not so much of a challenge. So getting the right supply to get the right kind of attention and right kind of intent, I believe that is needed. Then your question was, where are we today? I can tell you honestly, we are at ground zero. We are doing nothing in Vietnam about attention today. I can say that MediaCom has an amazing tool that's called creative analytics. That could be a very good starting point for a lot of our clients for attention, because that's again has a huge amount of machine learning base across multiple millions of client creatives, and it is quickly able to tell you that how will this creative, what sectors of this creative are getting attention from the client, right, from the consumer, right? So you can do that and consistently evolve your creative with that tool and keep running those creatives as you are evolving those creatives. So I'll say that is available. Probably that could be a first step to start testing for the attention. And that's where we are on the attention. I think in Southeast Asia, with Editas, Mediacom is doing some work on attention, but again, I'll say very nascent and very basic.
Yeah, we're definitely in the early stages, that's for sure. So James, what do you think it will take for Vietnam marketers to make the shift and start optimizing beyond core viewability and engagement metrics towards attention?
So I think there's probably two things that I'm being a little bit naughty because I'm going to indirectly answer your question. There's two things, probably two caveats that I would say up front, or watch outs maybe, before the answering the question directly. So the first one is actually attention there's no question, it's hot topic, but it's not necessarily, we need to be careful not to be obsessed about attention. It's very much dependent on what you're trying to achieve in a particular campaign that you're driving with your brand. And this becomes quite important. Otherwise, in the excitement of being able to optimize in the middle of a campaign, you could end up sacrificing other things that you were originally intending with the campaign. So I think the point here is attention is super important. It needs to be looked at along with a suite of metrics, and that you're very, very clear on what you're trying to achieve in the first place. The second one, which we tend to put to one side as a bit of a legal small talk, but is very relevant, is privacy. So which in doing this, all of us within the industry definitely wants to have more understanding on attention and to be able to use it, which I'll talk about momentarily. But we need to be very careful that, and you've alluded to consumer responses on these things just now, that we need to be very transparent with our consumers in what we're doing if we're starting to track their data. Because otherwise it becomes scary, and all of us are consumers as well, and how would we like it? So as long as we're prepared ourselves as consumers to be able to put through the things that we're tracking, I think it's fine. I think on the what will it take, to be honest, I think there will be a natural commercial realization. Now, so it's already beginning to happen, conversations we're having, which is we invest a lot of money in our communication. And what we're beginning to see with the change in communication, media habits, etc., just take the traditional TV and now move to online TV, you think about wider platforms, is the fact that we're investing a lot of money and not able to actually see its effectiveness. Now, that's linked back, probably the biggest barrier, particularly at senior levels, comes back to understanding and education. But I think it will come, and it's already starting. It's the murmurs. It's just now that people are trying to understand standard metrics. How do I actually track this? And what can I do about it?
Great, thank you. It sounds like we're on the right track. It is the beginning. There's a bit of work to be done, but we are going to get there. And I think it's exciting to see this new tech available as well. And particularly when we talk about privacy concerns, going to a cookieless world, we will need to start using alternate metrics as a proxy for performance indicators as well. So I believe our time is up, but I will just ask you both quickly in one short sentence. So Nitin, I'll ask you first. What words of advice do you have for marketers in the room who are just getting started on their media quality journey?
Very simple. Just do not consider this as a trade-off between media efficiency that don't do brand safety and brand suitability. I'll say consider it as a standard part of your media costs, and definitely invest on it, learn on it, grow with it.
Thank you. And James, any words of advice for the CEOs in the room?
CEOs, okay. I think there's probably two things I'd say. First of all is education and educate yourself. Be champions of education and latest trends within your organisation, and do it for yourself. I confessed to my team this week that in being put up on the panel here, I've learned a lot more about that verification. Right? So all of us are in this position where we need to constantly, things are changing, we need to constantly be abreast of the changes. And the second one is actually decision making. Now it might sound like a strange one, but I leave this as a bit of a thought. So if we are able to have better tracking and be able to adapt and optimize in the way we're talking about here with ad verification, it challenges the way we make decisions in the organisation. Because you're going to have to be effective in using this as a tool. We're going to have delegated decision making. Now that has a whole lot of implications which we haven't got time to talk about now, but it's a really interesting one for us as senior leaders to think about how to do that without completely ripping up our current organisational ways of working.
Great, thank you. Some great words of advice for everyone in the room. Thank you both so much for opening up. I really appreciate you sharing your perspectives as well as what you're doing on this important but interesting topic as well. It's very clear the ecosystem is evolving, tech is evolving as well. It's a constant journey. I think it's important that we as marketers all stay up to date with what's happening so that we don't get left behind. It's really clear that Vietnam is on the right track. There is still some room to grow. We're a bit further along on the journey in some of these areas, but we are making the right strides in the right direction, which is great. So thank you so much, and have a great afternoon, everyone.